Bring in Senator John McCain, a Republican from Arizona and a member of the Armed Services Committee. Senator, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate it. The phrase, provocative weakness, what does that mean to you? You use it in context of this situation. What is provocative weakness?
Well, what it means is that it is clear that we have bought into the idea that somehow Vladimir Putin and Bashar Assad are serious about the real dismantlement of these chemical weapons when there is no penalty in the United Nations Security Council for failure to comply. Lavrov made it very clear when this announcement was made, and I have to carry the quote around, there's nothing in this agreement about the use of force, and that means that the whole agreement to some degree is meaningless. And by the way, it's no credibility when the Secretary of State says we will, he just keeps saying if it doesn't work, we will. He's the one that also said that any strike would be unbelievably small. Unbelievably small. What message do you think that sends? And it should surprise no one that the attacks by Bashar Assad on the Free Syrian Army have dramatically increased. The assistance from Iran has dramatically increased. And Bashar Assad's foreign minister said this is a great victory for the Syrians. And I don't see how you can view it any other way.
So just to clear the record, when the idea of the deal first came out, you said, all right, I'll be open to it. Let's at least pursue it. It's better not to fight than fight. But at this point, do you believe that they are just pursuing a dream here, that this is a waste of time, essentially?
I think what they are pursuing is a laudable goal, but there's no real way to achieve it, number one. But number two is that you've now given Putin a major place in this whole scenario and in the Middle East. Number two, they have now got a green light to continue and escalate their attacks on the Free Syrian Army. I promise I know for a fact the morale of the Free Syrian Army is very bad right now. They feel they've been abandoned. The President of the United States 2 years ago said Bashar Assad must go. Tell me where in this scenario Bashar Assad must go. In fact, it may ensure that he stays in power. And there's 100,000 dead, Chris. There's 1 million children who are refugees. And we have stood by and watched this. Only in the last few days have they gotten some weapons, and they aren't the right kind of weapons. And don't think the Iranians, the Israelis, the North Koreans, and others take a lesson from this. The President said that we were going to, if they crossed the red line. I didn't think most people thought that crossing that red line meant that we would seek an agreement that's not enforceable.
Well, the president now says there's a new red line, that if Iran, with their nukes, that he would bomb their nukes. What do you make of the strength behind that statement?
I don't think there's any credibility left in the Middle East. I think when you say you're going to do something in case I would draw a red line and don't react, then I don't think you have credibility.
Where do you go from here? I know you think the deal is a loser, but what else do you do at this point? You know that the
I would dramatically step up our assistance to the Free Syrian Army.
Do you think Congress should be involved at all? Because you know that vote was not going to pass.
Well, this is done by the intelligence committees. Would be in agreement. Look, until you reverse the momentum on the battlefield and Bashar Assad thinks he's going to lose, is the only way you get a negotiated departure of Bashar Assad. As long as he thinks he's winning, then he's going to continue, particularly with the assistance that he's getting from the Russians and the Iranians. As we speak today, there will be a plane load of arms, conventional weapons, landing from Moscow to be used to kill Syrians. At the same time, we are dismantling the chemical weapons stocks. That's crazy.
If this does move forward, do you think U.S. troops should be involved, should be on the ground to help secure the chemical weapons?
Never. It would be harmful. It would be, but there's plenty of things we could do to assist and give them the kind of help. A year ago, the momentum was on their side. Then the Iranians came all in. The Russians came all in. Hezbollah, 5,000 Hezbollah came from Lebanon to fight on his side, and we sat by and watched, and it's a shameful chapter in my view.
You think that your view is suffering from politics here domestically? Do you believe if there were President Romney that members of your party would have the same resistance to going in that they're showing right now?
You know, I think there's probably some, Chris, in all honesty, that just because they dislike President Obama. But I think that the president went to the American people saying two things. One, I want to strike. Two, I want to pause. That's a very confused message that to give the American people when he spoke to the American people. I think that if he had acted, he had the authority to do so. Ronald Reagan invaded Grenada one night. Bill Clinton carried out strikes. Every president has. But once he decided to go to the Congress, it's the first time in history a president has announced he's going to act militarily and then turned around and said that he had to go to Congress to get their permission.
I mean, we were just talking about this because I wonder if, Syria aside, because it does seem the urgency has been taken out of the situation, is what we're seeing politically here a window into just this, you know, this circus that's going to happen here domestically with the spending bills and the politics there? I mean, if they're playing politics on something like whether or not to help a humanitarian situation, what happens when it comes to dollars and cents on the budget?
I think we're in for some very serious problems here, and I think that Republicans ought to understand that if we shut down the government, Congress always gets blamed. Rightly or wrongly, Congress gets blamed, and we've seen the movie before. Just some of them weren't around at the time. I was.
Well, what do you think? I mean, the president in his interview with ABC over the weekend said that he is not going to be negotiating around the debt ceiling. Where are you on that?
I think that the president has the ability to say what he wants to say, but there's going to have to be some negotiations. But there's got to be a willingness to negotiate, because we all know that we're not going to cut off Social Security checks. We're not going to cut off the salary and payment to the men and women who are fighting in Afghanistan. It's not going to happen. And for us to say that you've got to repeal Obamacare in order to get that done, as Charles Krauthammer said, that's a suicide note. That's the best depiction I can have. And I hope my colleagues in the House who believe that we need to shut down the government will understand that that's not what they hate government, but they don't want it to stop functioning.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, well, I want to get your take finally on some of the news coming out this morning about the Fed chairmanship. Larry Summers taking his name out of contention. Good move, bad move? What do you make of it? You know,
that's one of the things I've stayed out of. I admire Larry Summers. He's served honorably. He has obviously picked up enemies on the way, but this was more of an inside the Democratic Party issue than it was to do with Republicans.
Do you think, we talk about these nominations once in a while, and I think you're in the camp of President should have his advisors that he wants surrounding him.
Unless it's extraordinary circumstances, elections have consequences, as I found out to my sorrow.
Are you worried? Are you worried that with all of this, you know, you have been incredibly, you have your positions, you have your strength about the ideas about military action being what will be the game changer in Syria, but are you worried about the political cost to you of staking out nonpartisan positions? You've been doing it more and more. You've been attacking me all along the way. I want to point that out, Senator.
Well deserved.
But, absolutely.
Thank
you. You've turned my whole family against me. Good job. But do you feel that, what does that mean to you? Why are you doing this? Are you worried about your own political future?
You know, the one thing, I paid a visit to Syria, and I met these brave people, and I saw the carnage. I talked to a group of young women in a refugee camp that were gang raped, and that is Bashar Assad's indoctrination. I saw these orphans. I saw a young woman who's a teacher said, Senator McCain, you see these children all running around here? There's thousands of them. She said, they're going to take revenge on the people who they believe abandoned them and refused to help them. You know, I will admit to emotional attachment to the tragedy that continues to go on and us watching it go by. And if that's a fault, then I plead guilty.
Well, Senator, it's great to have you here in studio. It's great to have you on the show all the time, but a special treat this morning.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much.
Good luck with the fights abroad and at home that are upcoming.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.